What's up, creative fam? This is Ryan Sims, and in this video we're going to look at the stock pack Electro from CG Hacks and how we use that in Photoshop. See you there. So here we are in Photoshop with the mighty Thor, Jane Foster, and she's not quite so mighty here at the moment, and that's because we don't have any lightning. So let's get to it. Start adding some of that lightning and thunder. So let's go into Adobe Bridge and let's look at our Electro stock packs. Now, there are two stock packs that we have. We have the transparent version and the version that's on a black background that you could change the screen. It's not a huge difference between the two, but there are some differences. So let me show you what those are. So we're going to start with the transparent version first. So let's go to that. So in this stock pack, now this list is going to be the same as it is in the black background as well. You're getting the exact same thing. It's just depending on whether it's transparent or on a black background. So in this stock pack, you've got several different options, right? You've got electric particles. You've got ground contact arcs. You've got heavy arcs towards the camera. You've got impact scatters, impacts, large greeble arcs, linear arcs, medium greeble details, small greeble details, spherical energy, thick trails, and thin trails. So you can use your imagination. There's a lot of different ways to use these packs. We're going to use several in this image. And so right off the bat, I'm thinking if we want some lightning striking the hammer, Mjolnir, I think I might use either impact scatter or impact. Let's probably go with impact. And I might just go right here at the very beginning. I might just use, say, this one right here. So I'm going to take this one. I'm going to drag it in. And we're going to drag it right here on top of Mjolnir. I'm going to make sure that it's right where it needs to go. I'm going to drag it up real quick. I'm going to put it right, we'll just say right there for right now. We could probably put it up there. We could probably put it right here. I'll tell you what, let's do it at the top of the hammer, just in case. I may resize it, bring it down some, slide it down like that, something like that. I'll just hit enter. And first of all, I need to find it because I need to put it in the right place. So it's right here, so I'm going to put it right above my Thor layer here. There we go. So you can kind of see like a little before and after, see what that looks like. And so let's continue to add more to this image, okay? We've got one impact. Let's see, let's move to, why not? Let's do an impact scatter. Let's do that. Let's drag it. We'll put it right in the same area. Kind of resize that image just a little bit. Maybe bring it right about here. Maybe make it just a tad bit smaller, something like that. That way we've got some nice impact happening to this hammer here. And let's keep going. Let's see what other cool things that we can do. Now I want some electricity just kind of swirling around her, but you know what, before I even get that far, let's make some electric particles kind of like bouncing off of the hammer. So we'll grab this one, let's drag it in. We'll put it right there, drag it up a little bit. We can resize it. Kind of something like that. That way you got some sparks kind of bouncing off of the hammer. And we can throw in all kinds of electric strikes behind her. Let's see. I might have one kind of going across here. I'm basically just kind of going through and showing you as many different kinds as I can in this stock pack and how we can kind of fill out this image. Let's grab this one, drag it in. I might drag it right up there. Kind of bring it over. Now I don't know if I want it to be that spherical, so I might just kind of take it, transform it, bring it up like so, something like that. That way it's just kind of swirling around a little bit. That looks pretty cool. Maybe I'll throw in one behind her. So let's go back in. Maybe this time we go with either a thick trail. Let's do a thin trail. Let's take, we'll say this one right here. Drag and drop. I'm going to drag it in like that. I'm going to rotate it, enlarge it, make it go across the screen behind her, something like that. Maybe at a nice 45 from the top right corner to the bottom left, something like that. Really make it really cool, dramatic looking. Hit enter, and same thing here. Let's do the same thing. I really like the heavy arcs towards the camera. Those are my favorite, so let's not overthink it too much. Let's grab this one right here. I'm just going to drag it, drop it in, and let's put that in front of Thor. And I'm going to hit Control T to transform it. I'm going to rotate it, maybe start the edge over here, enlarge this area, kind of do something like that. That way it looks like it's kind of all around her, just like encircling the entire image. And we could really go crazy with it and add a bunch, but as of right now, let's just say that that's good. And all we did was just drag and drop. It's super simple. And so these, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 electros that I just put right here, I'm going to put all those in the group. So I'm going to select the bottom electro and then hold the shift key down and select the top one. That way it selects all of these layers. And I'm going to hit Control G to put that in a group. And I'll just rename it Electro. I could put it like, you know, top Electro. And as long as this blending mode is set to pass through, everything should be nice and transparent. Now what you do end up seeing as I scroll up is right now it seems a little faded. Like you kind of get like this little dark blue outline along the edge, which if you like that, that's fine, but I think we could probably make that a little bit brighter, a little bit more realistic. So instead of just remaining, you know, all of these different layers on normal, what I will probably do is go up here, select this Electro top group, and instead of pass through, I'll probably change it over to screen. And that way you see, if I zoom in, we'll just kind of look at a little before and after here. I'll hit Control Z to undo. You can kind of see before what it looks like. See, it almost looks a little bit darker. And so Control Shift Z to redo. When I change that group to screen, got a little bit brighter there. And that just makes it a little bit more transparent. So you can still use these PNGs in screen mode. And so that's always very helpful in situations like that if you're wanting to go a little bit more realistic. Another thing that you can do is if you want to play with the levels of this lightning, you can actually go in to your levels adjustment here, click on that, and then you can clip this levels adjustment to your Electro layer, and from there make sure you click on this little box right here, and from there you can actually play with the levels. So if you want to kind of mess with the blacks, mess with the whites to make it a lot brighter, you can do that. You can mess with the midtones if you like, gives it a little bit more of that outer smokiness, and so on and so forth, and then kind of see a little before, after. So another quick tip for working with Electro, especially in groups, if you're wanting to change the color of the lightning, now I think blue is appropriate for this, but like say you're dealing with the Flash and instead of blue lightning it's yellow lightning or something like that. Whatever your character is, again, we can go up to hue and saturation. We can click right here, which is going to clip our adjustment to our bottom layer, which the bottom one at this point is the Electro grouping. And so once we do that, we can actually play with the hue and change the color of the lightning. Now I can't think of a reason why we would want to change it in this scenario. However, if you didn't want a deep blue but maybe more of a teal blue, you could probably do something like that, and that would actually look pretty cool. You might want to do it to the one in the background as well, but that's just a quick way to change the color. And then of course, you know, if you wanted to change in the hue and saturation, you could do that as well. Make this lightning a little bit brighter, mess with all of those different settings. And so quick way to change the color of the lightning. Now there is one major difference with the transparent stock pack than there is with the one on the black background, and that is you can't use the puppet warp tool. Let me show you what I mean. So let's go to that one, this arc that's coming towards the camera. If I were to take that layer and go up to edit and puppet warp and say I wanted to place some anchors here and here, you can already see when I place that first anchor, it's already kind of made this weird effect here that isn't very pleasant to the eyes. But let's just say I wanted to move this around and do something crazy with these arcs. You can see when I hit enter, you've got that weird little sharp halo line there. And we don't want that. Now you don't get that with the black background transparency set to screen. So that's the main major difference. So let me hit Control Z and undo that. However, if I wanted to go into Edit and go into Transform and Warp and move it around like so, not really seeing that effect happen when we do it this way. So hit Enter. So if you're wanting to manipulate the lightning, I would advise using Warp rather than Puppet Warp. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take all of these Electro layers that we just added in that are above the Thor layer and delete those. And we're going to go back into Adobe Bridge, and now we're going to do roughly the same thing, only this time we're going to go to the Electro stock pack with the black background. And we're going to do roughly the same thing. We might choose a couple of different images this go around. So let's go in and let's see if we can replicate some of the same things. Let's go back. Let's grab one of these, maybe this one right here. Drag it in. Resize it. Bring it up right about there at the edge. Change the blending mode to screen. It always helps to just go ahead and do that. That way you can kind of see what you're doing. You ever want to intensify the effect, you could play with the levels, or you could just hit Control J to duplicate it, and that will also intensify that effect as well. If you don't want to run out of RAM and cause your Photoshop file to get even larger, you can just take these two layers, hold the Control key, select the one below it, so you got them both selected, right click, click on Merge Layers, and just merge it into one brand new layer. So it's a little bit brighter now. It did revert back to the black screen, so you just have to go back in and change that blending mode to screen. And now you have a slightly brighter version than you did before. Gonna keep it going. Let's go back to that thin trail. Let's grab one of these. We'll just grab this one. I'm gonna throw it in there. I'm gonna put that one behind her. Resize that. Drag it below Thor. Change that blending mode to screen. Control T to bring up our transform. Rotate it just a little bit, something like that. And to stretch that out, I might hit Control T again. Take this little point, hold the Control key down, and that way we can kind of stretch this a little bit. And let's go ahead and try to finish this out real quick. We'll grab one of these, bring it out into the front. Go ahead and change it to screen mode. Control T. Rotate, hold the Alt key down, drag that corner, bring it up a little bit like that, something like this. We can have it go that direction, or you know what, if we wanted to flip it, go up to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, flip it the other direction. That could be kind of cool. Now one thing you're going to have to pay attention to when you're doing this is if you zoom in, you're going to see that little line right there where the image ends. And there's two ways you can get rid of that. Either you could click right here, add a mask, and with a black brush, just paint it out like so. Or, let me undo that real quick. You could just, with that layer selected, you could just hit Control L, which will bring up your levels panel, and then just move the black slider down just a little bit until that edge disappears. Totally up to you on how you want to get rid of that. We'll do that for now. Let's add one more, maybe kind of like we did before with the particles. We can kind of bring that part in, change the blending mode to screen, rotate it, maybe enlarge it, bring it up just a little bit, something like that. Now this is just a quick way to kind of add these things in. You can go as big or as little or as crazy as you want. I might add one more right below Thor's layer. I'm just going to go and let's grab a thick trail just to do it. Let's drag it in. Again, change the blending mode to screen, rotate it, enlarge it, throw it up right up here. Something like that. Again, you can be as detailed or as quick as you need to with stuff like this. The world is your oyster. I might flip it vertically, something like that, and then hit Enter. Or better yet, since this is the thick part, I may rotate it the other way. Flip it horizontal, Control T, move it around like so. Now, same as before, if I wanted to take all of these Electro layers that are above Thor and select them all by holding down the Shift key and clicking it from the bottom to top, hit Control G to group that into a layer, and I'll just rename it as Electro Top. That way it's a distinction from the bottom. And if I wanted to change this blending mode from pass through over to, say, this linear dodge or add, you can just see it's already kind of bumped up the effects of this image. That's before, that's after, before, after. And with inside of this grouping, all of these layers are already set to screen. Now, if you want to play with any of these, you totally can, and that's just going to make the effect a lot more brighter and dramatic. So before, when it's passed through, and then the grouping set to linear dodge, add. So see a nice little difference there. So now if I wanted to take this front arc layer and I wanted to use the puppet warp tool, I could for the black background images rather than the PNGs. So let's check that out real quick. If I go up to edit and puppet warp, I can click my anchors, set right in the middle and on the ends, and if I wanted to move this around, I absolutely could. We're not getting that weird hard line that we did before. Same thing with this back piece of lightning. If I wanted to do the same thing to that one, I could just select it, go up to edit, and go down to puppet warp, select my anchor points, and say if I wanted to move this middle one up or down, we're not getting that same effect. It's nice, smooth transition. So go ahead and hit enter. Changing the color of the lightning would work the same way it did with the PNGs. So if I wanted to do a hue and saturation adjustment layer, I could just go up to hue and saturation, and I would clip it right there and mess with the hue and saturation, and you can see it starting to change colors. So real fun, quick and easy. Now, one thing to consider when you're using the Electro stock pack is the lighting of your subject. Normally, I would photograph my subject with rim lights and maybe even use some color gels on those rim lights to separate her from the background and already have like some blue lighting hitting her from behind. In this particular instance, I did not photograph her with rim lights. So if you're in that same situation, you may want to paint in some light, and I can briefly kind of show you how I would do that. I would just go over to my Thor layer, create a new layer, Control Shift N, and I'll just call it highlights. I'm going to clip that to our Thor layer. I'm going to leave it on normal at first and then change the blending mode as I go. I like to do it like that so I can actually see what I'm doing. What I would do is I would just zoom in, and we won't do it around the whole image. I may just do it right here on the side of her just to kind of show you what I mean. So what I would do is I would hit the I hotkey to bring up my eyedropper tool, and that would allow me to sample from the colors around in this image and sample from some of the colors in this image, specifically some of this blue that's around the lightning, maybe something like that. Hit my B hotkey to bring up my brush, and again I'm just kind of using the left and right brackets to increase and decrease the size of my brush. You can also right click and mess with the size of your brush from there. But what I would do is I would just kind of lightly paint on the outer edge of my subject, and you probably want to use a smaller brush at first depending on how soft you want this effect. I normally always have my hardness at 0, but that can change just depending on the subject matter. And just kind of paint along the outer edge there, something like that. Now there's usually a lot more finesse to this, but this is just kind of a quick rundown of how I would do something like this. But even something like that already makes a huge difference. But instead of leaving it on normal, I would change the blending mode to, say, perhaps color dodge or even linear dodge. And sometimes it's just fun to kind of see what each blending mode does and kind of get accustomed to it And sometimes you can even stack blending modes on top of one another and create really cool effects. So yeah, that is pretty much it on how you use Electro in your Photoshop composites. We talked about using the transparent PNGs versus the black background, putting them in groups, changing the blending mode, using the hue and saturation adjustment layer to change the color, using the puppet warp tool. So get in there, have fun. If you're interested, check it out at cghacks.com. And until next time, keep it real, keep it simple, keep it fun, and keep it creative.